doing?
I'm doing pretty good, I think.
Excellent.
My notes app or
Just making sure I reference the correct print.
Oh my
I would
goodness.
like what I have sent via email is what I have for my notes.
So I think you are speaking right before I do the centering.
Yeah.
Do you want to just cue me? How do you want to? Do you want to just look at me and then I can come around?
Okay.
I think I can. Can I get up this way? I probably can.
Yeah, you can come through back and then come.
Yeah, just bring them up. We'll just do four over here. Yeah, we'll do them close to the front.
Is anybody sitting here?
No. Well, I don't know. Not yet.
Yeah, it does. I'll just come around this way.
Check one. Hello? I got it. Sounds good to me. Sounds great. Thank you. Hello, hello. Can you hear it? Okay.
His mic is ready. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. We extend a special welcome to those who are joining us for the first time today. We gather here each week to reflect upon what is important in life, to center ourselves in love, and to nurture the bonds that bind us together as a community. Our goal is for this community to be a community where you can bring your whole self, all your identities, and all that makes you you. Things like your nationality, your gender, your religious heritage, your age, your sexual orientation, your physical body, the particular ways your mind works, your history of struggle or ease, that particular secret thing that makes you especially you. If you are interested in more information about our congregation, please fill out one of the guest cards in the pew racks in front of you. You can place that card in the offering plate when it comes around later in the service, and someone will reach out to you to talk about our congregation. If you're watching from an internet platform, look at our website, uucleveland.org, for more information. Our chalice lighter today is Pat Dillard. Please join me in reading the chalice lighting, which is found on your pew card. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is the fourth week of our Chalica celebration. Today's candle is for our fourth principle. Okay, I knew I was going to do this. Because I thought it was a fifth week, that's what happened. it's a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Sorry about that. Okay. These words are by Wayne Arnason, a UU minister. We come together this morning seeking a reality beyond our narrow selves that binds us in compassion, love, and understanding to other human beings. May our hearts and minds be open this hour to the power and the insight that weaves together the scattered threads of our experience. Now I invite you to take a moment to greet each other. If there's a face that's new to you, make an effort to reach out. And immediately afterwards, we're going to be singing the open hymn, We're Building a New Way, which is number 1017 in the teal hymnal, so you may want to get that marked.
Good morning. Of course, one of the reasons that we gather each Sunday is to foster that beloved community that knits us together. And one of the ways that we do that is that we bring our whole selves, including those things that give us deep joy, including those things that bring us sorrow, or those things that we struggle with, and we offer them in this place together. We do have one particular note, is that today, this would be a joy, is Brad Larson's birthday. He would have turned 36 today. He is greatly missed. A joy to remember. Those of us who are online, of course, are part of this beloved community, and we invite all of you who are online to share your joys and concerns there. Also, while we share our joys and concerns symbolically by releasing them into water, we also invite all of you to engage with one another, especially during coffee hour, maybe during classes or other things you're up to this week. So all of you are invited to share. As we do each week, we of course include a stone for those joys and sorrows that were shared online. We also, as we do each week, include a stone for those joys and sorrows that have yet to find expression.
Hello, precious community. My name is Suzanne Zilber, and I've developed a workshop that engaged people from our congregation in a free and responsible search for moral direction around social class and economic inequality. I'm so grateful that Valerie agreed to co-facilitate the workshop. The workshop participants collaborated in putting together this service for you. I'm speaking first to share the context and my own personal search. Let's start with some definitions so we are sharing the same language. Class is often defined as where one falls on the ladder of wealth, education, status, and power. We live in a hierarchy of who is valuable and who is disposable. Class is not just about money, it's also about culture. Culture being the rules for survival for a group's financial situation. And for some, survival doesn't mean the basic needs for food and shelter. It means maintaining an upper class status. Classism happens when class prejudice and power cause harm. Classism can happen in relationships, in organizational structures and policies, and in our relationships, and also within oneself. Perhaps you have experienced the stress of family pressure when you weren't conforming to the expectations of your class. Or you have taken in the negative messages about your class, like my friend who felt tainted by the label white trash. My work area was psychotherapy, and I have my client's permission to share that we did a session in which I had him switch between two chairs as he had a conversation between his blue-collar self and his white-collar self. Fortunately, they were able to come to an agreement. And finally, classism both creates and maintains extreme economic inequality in the United States. In my teen years in the 1970s, I noticed how class, race, and gender together created inequality between the people who were riding the rapid transit. At 5:30 p.m. on weekdays, I would observe white men in black suits with their black briefcases getting off the easternmost rapid transit stop off of our line of this congregation, and then there would be black women in white uniforms getting onto the rapid transit to head west. I would walk from that rapid stop to my very large home in angst over my unearned privilege. Having been raised in upper middle class culture, my teen response to addressing this unfairness was to focus on my own individual achievement. That I would work hard as a student to gain skills to help those who had less financial resources than me. Looking back, I wish I had known about the power of collective action, such as unionizing, and the importance of following the experience-based wisdom and leadership of low-income people and people in poverty who best know what their needs are. This congregation supported the Poor People's Campaign last summer, which lifts the voices and goals of marginalized people. So I had made a promise to myself to do something about inequality, but I was not sure how to go about it. Our faith calls us to be in community, in relationship, when we struggle with very difficult questions. Class and inequality raise difficult questions for me as an economically privileged person, such as, how much do I deserve? How have I harmed others through my privileges? How do I repair or take responsibility for that harm? and which actions will create the most equity. Meanwhile, my clients in poverty situations struggled with how to maintain a sense of worth, dignity, and safety in a culture that makes their lives hard. I first found a community to wrestle with my questions in 2001 while living in Iowa. I raised money for an organization called Beyond Welfare, and I enjoyed the mutually supportive, empowering dinners that Beyond Welfare offered. At one of these dinners, I met Numwa Lina Lu, a first-generation Hmong single mother, who asked that I share her name to reject any shame. I became her family partner, and we have remained friends. She is living in poverty in California to be near family. And she said, quote, "It's been especially self-realizing to know that being poor is not the same thing as being a bad person. Nor does it mean you're a failure. It's hard sometimes, but that's been a saving grace." I found class and classism education communities through an article about how to address class issues in psychotherapy. That article gave me a framework for creating workshops for psychologists and then for UUs. I joined UU class conversations, and I still seek guidance from my primary mentor that I met through them. I eventually named my free use workshop Class Conscious, Class and Classism in Congregational Life. The workshops themselves are communities for unlearning my classism. In one workshop, a participant corrected me for saying something classist. I was teaching people to not ask people what they do for a living early in a conversation, as that can have a classist impact. However, I sympathized with the impulse to ask that question, stating that work information can tell us about people's interests. A woman reminded us that many people work situations do not reflect their interests at all and are just a way to survive. She was so right. I got that icky shame feeling, and I blushed, and then I thanked her, and we carried on with the workshop. Now, the last time I revised my workshop was 6 years ago, and I felt the duty to read the big idea books that had been published in that period for this fall's workshop. These books removed some blinders to my understanding of history. All the books pointed to the same ideas, that historical and current racism and our slavery-based capitalism persist as causes of continued inequality and political gridlock in the United States. I felt a big, this explains everything, and I also felt some despair and also hope. Activist communities have also been important. A group called Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement introduced me to more progressive visions than I allowed myself to hope for on my own. Creating awareness is not enough, and we need to act to change policies that hold people down. As the UCC group prepared for this service, we all felt this quote shifted perspectives. Barbara Ehrenreich in Nickel and Dime says, quote, "When someone works for less pay than she can live on, when, for example, she goes hungry so that you can eat more cheaply and conveniently, then she has made a great sacrifice for you. She has made you a gift of her abilities, her health, and her life. The working poor are, in fact, the major philanthropists of our society. To be a member of the working poor is to be an anonymous donor, a nameless benefactor to everyone else," unquote. So now workshop participants will share insights and perspectives. Our hope is that you will approach us and talk about these issues in the library today or later. We hope to enhance our capacity to engage in cross-class situations, both within our congregation and in our work with community partners, and create beloved community. I will now invite up my wonderful co-facilitator and workshop revision consultant, Valerie McFadden.
Thank you. This workshop helped me see more clearly how relevant class is to our experience as members of this congregation and to how the congregation works. Here we talk about what we value most. We strive to create and deepen relationships, and we work together to accomplish things we value. Class backgrounds influence all these things: our values, how we socialize, how committees and meetings are run. So class is important. Statistics show that UU skew upper middle class, with an average education level of approximately 17 years. But sometimes we forget that's an average, and there are values above and below an average. Those values represent actual members of this denomination and its members' congregations who are in varying class positions and also who have varying class backgrounds. I don't recall any members of our group talking about experiences of extreme poverty or wealth, but I don't take that to mean those experiences were not represented in the room. Both of those are sensitive topics, and I wasn't part of all conversations. But participants did talk about being part of the working class, the middle class, the upper middle class, having significant wealth, and struggling financially. People talked about moving between classes. People talked about relatives, including siblings, belonging to different social classes. Moving between classes can be difficult. Changes in class status are often accompanied by changes in values and lifestyle, which may drive friends and family apart. I witnessed this in our class conversations group as people talked about their experiences. I heard heartbreaking stories of rifts between family members, rooted in having different cultural and political values, values often associated with class. So while the averages say we're an upper middle class denomination, we are diverse, at least in this way. Being welcoming to all classes is not just about attracting people who are poor or working class so we can be more inclusive. Indeed, if we want our current members to be able to bring their full selves to this community, we need to be open and accepting of people of all classes.
I'm going to be reading a reflection on the first principle by Andrew Haidas on the inherent worth and dignity of every person. He writes, "I have always loved the human pageant. I remember as a young person sitting in coffee shops or on park benches and admiring the passing parade, the ceaseless flux of humanity like the most gentle and warm tides. Lovers strolling slowly by, kids gamboling across the grass like lambs in spring. It's easy to feel an almost overwhelming love of humanity in such settings. I behold my fellow humans, even though I don't know any of them personally, pursuing their own version of the good life in all its simplicity and tenderness and joy. At base, such scenes have always reinforced my pretty much unshakable faith in the essential goodness of human beings. That for all our neurosis and contradictions, and fears, we all want to do our part to love and be loved in return, to do good and have good done for us.
Good morning. We had a number of people in this course who discovered extraordinary things through the process that reoriented how they understand. Actually, I will steal that chair. So we have Nancy King-Smith and Lori Albright have joined us for a little conversation about the things that they have discovered and the kind of learning that has gone on during the course. So pardon me as I make sure this mic is turned on. And starting with you, Nancy. So when we spoke, one of the things that you raised was how one of the primary ways you thought about class had to do with sort of finance and money and economic kinds of things. What else have you learned and kind of in this process discovered about class's many dimensions?
Well, focusing on it for several weeks during the wonderful workshop really helped me see all the nuances of class distinctions in the United States. That in addition to the frame I'd always seen it in of economics, that there's power, education, social norms, speech, dress, so many other things.
Did anything particular come out to you? Like, is there something that sort of clicked in your mind of like, oh, that was a moment of class?
Yeah. Well, I realize we're all such a mix of overlapping and sometimes conflicting class distinctions. And I thought about that I have changed class through time and effort and good fortune. I grew up a teacher's kid, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we had a high priority on education, on church, arts and culture, spending time in nature, independence, as well as working hard, being frugal, all those things. And I've always thought of my solidly middle-class values as very positive. In fact, even thinking about them as being best. And I think this experience has helped me recognize that while those values have worked for me, that other values are also ways of approaching life's opportunities and challenges.
That word best always gets real tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Best, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there any new expectations you're going to have? Are there ways that you're going to sort of maybe a new lens to sort of think about your engagement with other people to be more cognizant of these differences?
Yeah, I can be very goal-oriented. And I've recognized that the working class values of community and connection are also good ways of achieving desired results. So I'm really trying to slow down, put a priority on relationships, and recognize the many ways that we can value diversity. That's
wonderful. Lori, so obviously all these issues and ideas are interconnected, so they're not exclusive. But one of the things that you and I spoke about are some of the character and kind of personality assumptions that go along with class. What did you learn about how we think about what it is to be a good person or to be a responsible person that class sort of, affects us with?
So I grew up middle class in Perrysburg, Ohio, and I was taught that in order to be a good person, you work hard and you do well in school and you shepherd money, you save, so that you can accumulate things to take care of yourself as you grow. And so I got more experience with lots of other people in the world, and I noticed that oftentimes, and this is a huge generalization, but oftentimes when people who are poor come into a little bit of money, instead of saving it, which would be like, from my perspective, the first priority to do, they would be, sharing it with other people, and then they'd have nothing left. And this would just be a source of consternation to me. It's like, why would one do this? The responsible and right thing to do is to put things away. And as I spent more time looking at folks, not just are hard on their luck for a minute, but experience generations of not having enough resources to meet your daily needs, you develop a different attitude towards money. And so sharing and giving what you have, because tomorrow you're going to need something and you have to rely on your community. So those values of sharing and generosity are beautiful when you think about it, as opposed to actually being considered selfish and hoarding things.
That so perfectly captures so many experiences around realizing that some of these assumptions that we might come with, depending on our class background, are things to reassess. On that point, to both of you, this can be a really overwhelming topic. I mean, if you start thinking about this, it's one of those things that it like spiders into your life, and you suddenly realize all of these things that feel so foundational are all wrapped up in this. And in lieu of Chalica that we are currently observing, and in lieu of our new 8th principle, and its focus on creating beloved community through dismantling these systems of oppression and seeing class as part of that, what is a good first step? Like, what do you think, maybe putting yourselves as the people sort of doing that, what is the first step to begin to dismantle and to kind of begin to move away from these assumptions?
So for me, this may sound trite and small, but I think it's still powerful, which is that when encountering difference, instead of going, well, that's just wrong, if you don't think the way I do, that's just wrong, to go, oh, it's different. Let me have an attitude of curiosity and perhaps some grace and love in what I might discover in that.
So you said that sounds small. That sounds huge. I mean, curiosity, that's a big ask when it feels so hard sometimes. So I really appreciate that. Nancy, how about you?
Well, I have been thinking about all of this in terms of the systems that we have with our history in the United States, with our history as a UU association, as a congregation, and so on, and realizing that a lot of just the ways we do things are because they're the ways we do things, and that unless we as individuals start to question them, challenge them, and say, that system is working all too well, it's working as it was designed, how can we shift ourselves and shift the ways we do things so that they have a different outcome, which is a more equal one?
So very big questions that are system-sized and also personal-sized. Thank you both for sharing so much about what you have gleaned from this time together. And of course, I hope the learning continues for all of us.
And now we have an opportunity to share from our financial resources. Part of what we do as a congregation is to provide financial support to nonprofit organizations that are living out our values. Suzanne Zilber is an enthusiastic supporter of today's offering recipient, Riddall Green Partnership, and will tell you about their work. You're welcome to present your offering by putting it in the collection plates. You may also give by way of Cash App. Our handle, which is listed in the order of service, is $UUCC 44122.
Do I talk first and introduce it? Okay. All right. Hello, everybody, again. So one step you can take today to enact, what we're talking about to try to equalize in the unfairness that we have in the city of Cleveland is to give to the Riddall Green Partnership, which is a Black-led organization that focuses on urban agriculture and youth education. The three dynamic founders transformed a former illegal dumping site into an 18-acre agricultural campus in Cleveland's Lower Kinsman neighborhood to serve low-income residents. You may be able to see it from the East 79th Street stop of the Rapid. The RGB campus has 2 greenhouses, 6 hoop houses, and a commercial-level composting station. They even have a hoop house for veterans to build community with each other. The RGP farm raises tilapia fish using a unique indoor aquaponics and hydroponics self-sustaining system that grows fish in tanks with vegetables on a connected top tier. The group recently got a contract with the Cleveland Tree Coalition to grow 1,000 trees a year to help Cleveland restore its tree canopy. And for those who are in the forum on healthcare redlining, having more trees improves actual health. This group is very effective and continue to expand their projects. The group created a culinary kitchen, restaurant facility, and a farmer's market in Maple Heights. The farmer's market produces fresh produce for sale for 7 days a week in a former food desert. The culinary kitchen building serves as a classroom and community kitchen and as an incubator for emerging food businesses. Please give generously.
Sanctify you, prophet, banish all doubt and fear, be faithful to your mission, the quest that leads us on. Announce to all the people the justice promised long, restore to every nation true peace throughout the world. Profetiza pueblo mío, profetiza una vez más, que tu voz sea el eco del clamor de los pueblos en opresión. depression, sorrow, tears. Let truth be your protection, the light of a new sun. Profetiza, pueblo mío, profetiza una vez más, que tu voz el eco del clamor de los pueblos en opresión. Profetiza, pueblo mío, profetiza una vez más, anunciándole a los pobres una nueva sociedad. Let this be what you hope for, the battle that you choose, to build a social order with justice at its core. Profetiza, pueblo mío, profetiza una vez más, que tu voz el eco del clamor de los pueblos en opresión. Profetiza, pueblo mío, profetiza una vez más, anunciándole a los pobres una nueva sociedad.
Please join me in reading the acceptance of gifts found on your pew card. We offer these gifts with gratitude, and we acknowledge the constant gifts of time, talent, and treasure that strengthen and nourish this congregation as a reflection of our commitment to community within and without, our purposeful spirituality that is ever searching and growing, and our intentional actions that lead to greater justice in our congregation, our city, our nation, and our world.
Meritocracy. In an ideal environment in which opportunity is accessible to all and all accomplishments are encouraged equally and fairly, the implementation of meritocracy sounds like a great idea. Wouldn't rewarding those with greater capabilities, talents, or aptitude make for a more successful society? In practice, access to opportunity is traditionally restricted to those in the right circles, living in the right neighborhood, and knowing the right people. As Christopher Hayes, from his book Twilight of the Elites, writes, "The pyramid of merit has come to mirror the pyramid of wealth and cultural capital." Since we rely upon society to identify which accomplishments to promote, participation may be limited to only certain types of cogs in the machine, while other capabilities may be completely ignored or starved. Hence, the current lack of abundance of opportunities for poets, painters, musicians, artists of all kinds. Continuing in that theme, the Rabbi David Wolpe writes, "We all know deep down that most of what we have is a product of good fortune. No matter how hard we work, we did not earn our functioning brains or the families into which we were born. We live in cities others created for us, organized by a government, protected by a military, shaped by our predecessors. Yet we still point to our accomplishments and proudly proclaim, "I did this." The well-off salve or soothe their consciences by assuring themselves that it is hard work and merit that brought their success, which also leads them to conclude that it is a lack of merit that keeps others from succeeding.
Once upon a time, and I mean a long time ago, I attended an elementary school. It was a mix of both working class and middle class kids. I wasn't really aware of class differences then, but I do remember that some of the kids had strong ties with their extended family. That is, they'd always be going over to grandma's on Sunday dinner and their aunt's house to play with all their cousins, and so on. Their families seemed to be the center of their lives. Quite different from my middle-class family. We gathered mostly for the big three: Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. So when I saw the chart of cross-cultural differences in our class, I thought of the family relationships I had observed many years ago. I looked at some of the characteristics listed for working class, not for middle class. It was like, wow. When you hear these now, see how they strike you. On our chart, working class culture typically has strong loyalties to family and places and institutions. Is a community with collective goals, for example, fair wages and better working conditions. It has diversity. It has solidarity. It is anti-status. And it is character-oriented. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? To me, it sounds a lot like beloved community.
Oh, hello, everybody. I won't sound as eloquent because I just have bullet points on the business card. So I came to the class seminar meeting Suzanne at a community event in Cleveland Heights, and I was telling her how I had just moved to Cleveland about a year ago, didn't really know many people because I had a full-time job and was wrapping up my dissertation, and she told me about a class-conscious seminar that she was hosting at this church. And then I informed her that when I was an undergrad, I had actually organized a campus event about social class. And much of that was because I became much more class conscious. I'll explain why. But when I was in undergrad, even graduate school, whenever I would bring up social class, I noticed a lot of my peers would be visibly uncomfortable. And it actually kind of made me a little disillusioned that that same attitude continued in graduate school. But my class consciousness came actually when I was attending high school. I attended 8 different high schools in 3 different states. I'm not military, just so you know. And the schools just varied in terms of social economic class as well as race and diversity. So my 5th high school in a small town of Farrell, Pennsylvania was academically so bad that the state government was about to take over, but then my family moved to Miami, but we ended up in Orlando, Florida, and I was attending a school that was ranked the 200th best in the nation. And then almost a few months afterwards, I moved to Columbia, South Carolina, and I was in a school that academically and discipline-wise was actually one of the worst in the states. And it taught me early on that social economic status has a strong influence on the quality of education, which kind of contradicted a lot of the messages I've been taught as a kid, where I was told by a lot of adults that it's not the school, it's the students, but it turns out the school does play a pretty significant role. And I do want to say, too, with class consciousness, another reason why I became very class conscious is as I elevated from somebody who grew up in public housing projects in Pennsylvania, South Carolina, to going to graduate school, getting a PhD, and now currently in the middle class with opportunities to rise, I noticed that my attitudes and customs were different from my family and friends, which made family visits and visits to friends actually made me really detached from them, unfortunately. But It's somebody who elevating class are things I do more, and as we talked about in the seminar, is that working class communities tend to have a stronger sense of neighborhood, and I do more knowing every single person on my block. Kids coming together to play sports, including football on concrete, which I do not advise doing. A lot of scars from that. Compared to living in Bloomington, Indiana, where I was going to graduate school, where I didn't know any of my neighbors for the 8 years I lived there, until the pandemic, where I saw strange faces walking in the neighborhood because people got tired of being in their house all day. So I don't have a good conclusion to end with, but I do want to end with that, and I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you.
Okay, please stand in body or spirit for our closing hymn.
Actually, quick interruption. We just have a few announcements right before we get to our final things.
No.
Okay. Couple more. Apologies.
And I apologize, I'm late, I'm slightly discombobulated. Many of you know I lost my father in August, and I'm in mourning brain, so please forgive me. Class consciousness, first of all, may I add my voice and thank Valerie and Suzanne for taking on a tough, and as you're all starting to, if you already weren't aware, realizing is a gigantic subject. I have gotten used to saying, for me, it's bigger than racism. I, like a lot of what's been said before, I feel like I've been a part of 3 different classes, and also with all my travels, and also with a father wonderfully building a career, I had to move a lot, like you did. So you paradigm shift. Now we call it code switching with language, with culture. Very, very aware of that, as most of us are. And part of this class is to get us to be aware of it most of the time, so we can take great joy in what we like about these different things, and sorrow in what we feel in our gut is wrong, but to be open to all of that. So I want to do a tiny little experiment from Judy's life as a former, very proud Pan Am flight attendant. This is a 707. And we're winging our way to Salt Lake City. Privileged group of people going skiing in the winter. Delicious. Now, would a couple of you on the aisle just put your arms out like this into the aisle? Just put your arms out into the aisle. Exactly. No, too many. Few. All right, that's enough. Now, I'm a little 4-year-old and I'm wiggly, and I got away from mom and dad, and I'm excited, and I'm out in the aisle. The service isn't going on. And this is what I see. I'm welcomed by certain people. I'm not alone. Friendly faces, a grandma wanting to ask me, honey, where's your mom? Okay, you may put your arms back. Next experiment. Everybody on the aisle, put your arms out, please. Everybody, everybody, everybody. It looks like a joyous celebration, a happy phalanx. Winging my way now from New York City to Santo Domingo, and I'm a wiggly 4-year-old, and I get away from my parents. And this is what I see in the aisle. This is what I see. From working class people, some are migrant workers, some are baseball nuts. God knows the whole island is a baseball paradise. But this is what I see. So this kind of welcoming, you can put your arms back, is what I noticed from working class people, from people who actually also are still more connected to the earth and very much connected to each other. And I would wish that for all of us. Thanks.
My name is Mark Weber. Don't you hate it when people who are not on the schedule just sort of... I did, since we're sharing information about our high school in growing up, I want you to know I graduated in the top 90% of my high school class. So I'd like to see who can beat that. Reflecting on social class, in April of 1968, actually it was early April, a couple days before his assassination, Martin Luther King spoke to striking sanitation workers in Memphis. And what he said to them was this. He said, you know, when the beloved community comes, hopefully, the sanitation worker will have as much respect as the surgeon. He went on, both contribute to our health and well-being. If they don't do their jobs, then our health is placed at risk. Dr. King concluded by saying that all work contributes to the common good, and that all work has value. And how do we begin? Well, by taking one step forward, which is our final hymn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Judy, and so glad to be able to include you even off schedule. That's just fine. And let's thank everybody for sharing today. This was an extraordinary effort. A few quick announcements. First off, if you would like to talk about where you went to high school and the experiences there, we have our Soul Matters conversations happening in the library after the service. Of course, today's will tap into these very rich, extremely multifaceted conversations. Please feel free to join there. I know some from the group will be there to facilitate some conversation, but a great place to dig into this in your own ways. Related to that, we have a new slate of adult religious education opportunities coming up, a couple to put on your radar. First, the eminent Dr. Molly Watkins, who is right over there, will be offering a course on cultural literacy. I won't go into all the details because it would take a long time, but ask Molly if you have any questions. I think it's going to be a very rich and a well-practiced one because you facilitate this at Case Western often, so this is well-traveled for Molly, and she's bringing it here to us. Also, Reverend Randy will be leading a discussion of the fantastic book, The Sum of Us, by, is it Heather McGee? Is that, I wasn't sure if I had her right first name there. Extraordinary book that taps into many of these conversations in different ways. Additionally, a couple of things that are happening right after service or today, there is going to be a table for people who are interested in going to GA during coffee hours, so please stop in there if you have interest to learn more about that. Additionally, from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock this evening is one of our final McKim letter of intent opportunities. I know Ray Gonzalez will be there. There might be some others. The letter of intent date is coming up for creative projects that draw on your interest and your expertise to help us invest in our mission and community. And a final one, this is a little specific in particular. If anyone remembers or has worked with Dr. Jay Lanier, she was affiliated here, and we had some connection with her opera by the Lake, I believe is the name of it. This is some years back. She is moving and is 78 and has some physical limitations and needs some help. Basically on Monday, January 30th, so tomorrow, and then Tuesday the following day, around 9:30 or 10:30 in the morning. If you'd like more information about that, just let me know. I'd be happy to pass that along. A real way to, if you want to get your hands dirty doing something helpful, or something immediately helpful in need. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to sing one more step, number 168 in your gray hymnal.
One
Sometimes the vision we share for compassion and community is bigger than our actual hearts. Often, our hopes for a just society that is both free and responsible exceeds what we actually do to create it. But may we never let our failing and floundering keep us from seeking again and again to live out in concrete deeds the hopes and dreams of our collective heart.
Please join me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts, and till we are together again.